Hello, everyone, and welcome to CSM Mastermind. My name is Andrew Marks, co-founder of Success Hacker and our Success Coaching Training Program. We're back for our monthly live webcast today discussing how to manage a CS team through hypergrowth. This free learning event is being hosted by Success Coaching, the team that brought you the first accredited customer success professional development training program. If you're looking to earn your first customer success certification, check out our launch product. Just a reminder that we've adjusted the delivery of our instructor-led CCSM Level 1 certification program to be fully virtual and have seats remaining in our 3-day boot camp next week. The boot camp runs Monday through Wednesday, May 18th to 20th from 8:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Pacific. And as part of our COVID-19 relief effort, we're offering a 50% discount on this boot camp. Use coupon code CSMM-50. Ashley will also put the code in the chat window. Find out more about our training and coaching offerings at successcoaching.co. For those of you who haven't participated in one of these events before, this is a live and unscripted discussion where we dig into a single topic relevant to customer success. Regardless of the company you work for, the details of your customer-facing role, or the size of the customers you deal with, we pick topics that are going to be practical and useful to you. The schedule for our upcoming CSM Mastermind events and our public training courses can be found at successcoaching.co under the Events Calendar tab. So please check that out. There's a lot of thought leadership out there, along with a lot of theories about how to deliver customer success. This series allows us to focus on the practical and give you real-world advice, tips, techniques, and shared experiences from those out in the wild that are practicing customer success on a daily basis. To do that, we invite 3 participants from the customer success community to join me for a roundtable discussion. These are people that have been recommended to us as being great at their craft, and we ask them to share their experiences and perspectives. We will be taking questions during the webcast, so please use the Q&A functionality found at the bottom of your screen to ask or upvote a question. I'm very excited to welcome our panel for today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Let's get started with Miranda. Miranda, why don't you introduce yourself?
Good morning, Andrew, and good morning, everyone. First, just thanks so much for taking the time out of your day and joining us here. I'm Miranda Dekonsky. I'm the Vice President of Customer Success and People Operations at a company called Swiftly. I've been doing customer success or customer-facing operations in some shape or form for well over 20 years now. I think I'm at 22, going on 23 years of doing this. And I've held roles, everything from individual contributor to a COO at various startups, and also at some companies that were a little bit more, I would say, well-formed with like 35,000 employees globally.
Thanks, Miranda. Allie, it's all you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Andrew. I'm very excited to be on the panel today. Like I said, my name is Allie Ludowisi. I am a Customer Success Operations Manager at N2Y, a pre-K through 12 special education software company. Been in the customer care role or a customer care role for the past 10 plus years. And I really work on helping customer care teams transition to that proactive, customer success model, going from a reactive to the proactive. So love the industry here. Thank you.
Thanks, Allie. And last but not least, Jay.
Hey, everybody. It's nice to see you all. My name is Jay Nathan, founder of Customer Imperative. Have been in technology, SaaS, customer success for the past 20 years. Work with B2B SaaS companies all over North America right now to help them implement and deploy customer success strategy. So great to be here. Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Great. Thanks, everybody. So let's get to the topic for today. Customer success makes all the difference in a company's ability to earn and retain users, both which are essential for growth. When a company reaches a hypergrowth phase, it's exciting but tough. It involves a lot of change and uncertainty, making it a challenge to manage a CS team through this type of phase. As a leader, your goal is to provide your team members with a vision and something to focus their efforts and fuel their drive. We'd love to hear your experiences with managing CS teams through hypergrowth stages and gather some practical suggestions on how others can do the same. especially now. That's almost counterintuitive. People think, what do you mean hypergrowth? But there are companies out there that are very much growing right now with what's happening. So who wants to get us started?
Andrew, I'll kick it off. And taking from your point here of companies, a lot of companies are backing off on hiring and not in that hypergrowth, but a lot of companies are. N2Y, for example, we're in the prime of hiring for our customer care team on the success and support side because of the pandemic that we're in. And doing that, we have to keep a close connection with our team members, our long-term team members, as well as the new hires in this hypergrowth stage. And one of the things that we have seen work that in the beginning we did put off because we thought it was going to be, kind of interruptive, but we needed to keep those, one-on-one meetings with our team members and keep that close connection. We've discovered that it's really helped motivate them and keep them productive because we are able to discuss their concerns of during this phase and where they're busy and what struggles they're having, but then also celebrate their successes. So we've seen those one-on-one meetings have really helped us.
So kind of keeping that same rhythm is really important, regardless of where we physically may be located.
Yeah, I think, sorry, Miranda, go ahead.
Finish your thought, Allie, sorry.
I was just going to say, in the beginning, we thought, those standard meetings were the first to go during all the, the breakout of the craziness during this time. They were the first to be pushed off and let's reschedule and move it to next week. And that only hurt us. And so moving them back on the calendar and getting them regularly scheduled, the feedback has been awesome.
Yeah, I agree with you, Allie. I think it's really important that you do keep the communication strong and keep a regular frequency, if not increase that frequency. Other things that I've done through, and of course, my company, we're not experiencing hypergrowth right now, but I have built, customer operations teams in, one example is Lending Club. I was there, we built from 5 to 50 in 2 years. So if you can imagine just that's the pure definition of hypergrowth and the chaos and the craziness that comes with that. I think, yes, communication is key, but I think there are also other things that can, really help foster that positive and predictive environment that Andrew was talking about. Things like having structure in place, some kind of predictability in the day-to-day. I've always used OKRs, objectives, key results, to set up a framework so everybody knows what their part of the picture is. Also, just having the regular check-ins on the OKRs, making sure that they're still the right thing to do. Because when you're in hypergrowth, if you do your planning and you put things in place today, things could shift rapidly and tomorrow not be true. And then also just having some defined and set up KPIs with the team. That's different than your OKRs, but having KPIs around, I think of it as like a barometer. So what is the engagement looking like with your customers? What's the engagement looking like with your team members? What's customer satisfaction looking like? NPS, looking at figuring out what are your KPIs for both your customers and your teams, so you can kind of measure how they are adapting to that.
So we're talking leading indicators as well as lagging indicators, right? Are my people doing the right things, the right ways, and the right times, right? Yeah. To make sure they're still engaged. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of those lagging indicators, like CSAT, are definitely what I call leading insights. So while they're lagging, they can tell you in a predictive way about what the future behavior of your customers could be, and if you aren't doing what you should be to manage the morale of your team during rapid growth, if that all dips, then the customer experience can dip as well.
Yeah, understood. Jay, I know you're a big process guy. How does process and methodology and playbooks play a role in effectively managing that team through this type of phase?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing that I often hear about and I've seen and heard my own employees, sort of have concerns with is not knowing what their role is and not knowing who to go to for what. And that's very common as we scale and grow our teams. We're putting new processes in place. Things are changing rapidly. It may be a different answer to that question, who to go to for what, this week than it was last week. So I think, listening to those things and staying attuned to them, I'm going to go back to something Allie said. The one-on-one is the most important meeting that a manager can have with their people. And it shouldn't matter whether it's hypergrowth or steady state or any other time. That is how that relationship actually dictates your happiness as an employee with the company and your satisfaction. I believe that has a bigger impact than almost anything else. And it's all about the team member. It's not about the manager. This should be the team member's opportunity to get help, right? And so I think as a leader, it's incumbent upon us to really listen in those meetings to say, okay, we are missing the mark. People don't know where to go to. They don't know where to go get information or who to send this type of issue to. And so it's a good way to connect those two things together. And then, the more acute issues, those need to be taken care of more quickly. Playbooks, documenting how to do things, training people. A lot of times we're bringing people up through the ranks to be managers, so they need to be trained on how to do one-on-ones, but they also need to be, individual contributors need to be trained on how to interact with clients. Mm-hmm. So I could talk your ear off on this, so I'll give the mic to somebody else, but those are the things that come to mind for me.
Can I back on that really quickly, Jay?
Sure. Go ahead, Miranda.
I agree 100% with what Jay just said, and Allie, of course. But I also would say one of the things that we've recently done on my team, because we are busy, we are still moving really quickly, and we've added a weekly stand-up on top of our weekly team meeting. So it's important not only for the team to be aligned with the manager and have that one-on-one time with the manager, but to have a FaceTime with the team, because it builds trust. And that is incredibly crucial during any kind of rapid growth phase, of having that trust that that things are going to get done, and you can trust your team members to do that and hold their part to it.
Yeah, on adding to that, Miranda, we have, sorry, Jay. We have a daily stand-up on our team, and it's just set for 15 minutes first thing in the morning to kind of catch up of how things, and we focus on the team wins, during that time of who had a good customer meeting that day, or, the previous day, or what's on the schedule, or answer a quick question. And then something else we implemented on the side of gaining that trust and the collaboration with the team members is we've actually split up into smaller groups. And so we have teams of 3 to 4 within our group that ranges from seniority to, somebody, a new hire coming on, so that they have a directive of a group, chat to go to that anybody can answer. So if a senior member isn't available, but somebody underneath them can answer, the feedback on that is you do earn the trust. And then those new hires are also getting, they're getting more comfortable with going to people without having the fear of going to one manager or to the entire group and looking like they're asking a silly question.
I like that group community mentoring concept. Mm-hmm. That's great. It's interesting. One of the first, you brought up the daily scrum. That was one of the first questions we got. Remember, you can ask questions. So I please would encourage you to ask questions in the Q&A. Yeah. So you've seen the daily scrum effective. Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah.
And we've altered it. We had to play with it. There was, we had it in the mornings, first thing. And then during the busy times, we moved it to the afternoons, tried to do the end of the day kind of recap and what we thought, how the day went. And then we moved it back to mornings because, of the timing and how busy we got, people were able to connect easier first thing in the morning before we got on the phones or into meetings.
And just like we suggest in customer success, try stuff, right? So try it, adjust it when necessary, fine tune it. Mm-hmm.
I like, I don't know if anybody is a Patrick Lencioni fan. I'm a huge Patrick Lencioni fan, but he's got a book called Death by Meeting. I think that's the name of it. And the framework in there that he puts out for me, you just Google this and it'll come right up. But the daily stand-up.
What's his name?
Patrick Lencioni, Lencioni. he wrote The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team and
Okay.
Ideal Team Player. He's written like 13 or 14 books now, but he talks about the daily stand-up, the weekly operational meeting, like a staff meeting, ad hoc strategic meeting. So those things that are bigger than you're going to cover in a weekly meeting. Oh, yeah. She's got it right there.
You got it right there.
And then like your quarterly strategic meeting. So exactly. But I think it's important to have all those forums. And as you think about, if you're a leader joining a new company, how do you set those forums up? One of the things that I like to do in addition to that, and maybe it falls into this ad hoc strategic bucket, is have like a town hall just for my team, right? Or for the whole customer success team, which may include support, services, customer success management, because then you get to share what everybody in your little area is doing. And it's different than a company-wide town hall, right? It can be more specific and focused to the kinds of things that you're doing there. So I know it's a lot of meetings, but in that book, Patrick makes the point that being a leader is, part of your job is to run really great meetings for your team, not meetings that people dread, but meetings that people get value from.
Yeah, every meeting there should be some value, right? If you can't nail down what the value is, then you need to reconsider, is this something that I should have a meeting for, or is it something I can do via email or Slack, right?
That's right. Yep. Communication is not a reason for a meeting.
So I'm hearing, so some of the themes that I'm hearing here is, number one, communication is really important during this period. Also trying to kind of maintain some of the core framework of what you have been doing, right? So there's some familiarity that people are experiencing, and then some sort of way in which you represent what it is you do, some sort of methodology, some sort of process. Which is something why, when we work with clients, even early stage, like you gotta write this stuff down. You gotta start getting into the habit of establishing, documenting what it is you do, right? Because you never know when you don't necessarily know when hypergrowth hits, and you have to be prepared for it.
Yeah, one of the activities we just recently did in one of our team meetings. So we brought all these meetings back on the board after going through such a busy time. And we decided to do what the activity is called Start, Stop, and Continue. And I came across it looking, and we have now implemented it in many different forms across a lot of different, smaller meetings, even in our monthly customer care meeting down to just our weekly success meeting. And that has driven to, identifying KPI metrics and what do we need to watch for? What playbooks need to be changed? So it's allowed us to really analyze where we need to go. And it's great to get the feedback of the new hires. This training isn't working. These times aren't working. These small meetings are, my group is too busy. I need somebody else in my group that has more availability, things like that. And that activity has sparked great conversation.
I have used that framework for years, and I actually use it in my one-on-ones still today. When I ask for feedback, I try to ask for feedback in every single one-on-one I have. Is there anything I should stop doing, start doing, or continue doing? Most of the time folks are like, I don't have anything, but if you ask enough, somebody will eventually have something super valuable will come out of it.
Now, how do you drive accountability during this type of situation, this time? I mean, Miranda touched on that with some inward-facing KPIs, metrics, but how do you drive accountability with the team when things are going crazy? When you're growing so quickly.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I would love just to kind of take a little stab at it. And what I've done. First, I will call out, as a leader, just be flexible, be a human, be understanding. Things are not going to be perfect. Things are going to slip. Acknowledge that with the team, but still ask that everybody strives for excellence or of some sort of excellence, right? Remind people why they're there. Like, what is your mission? Why are you there? What's your true end goal? Who are you trying to service? What are you trying to make a difference for? I feel that people, while KPIs, metrics, and everything are very grounding, and they tell a story. The data always tells a story. It doesn't really motivate people. What motivates people is them having a why and them knowing that what they're doing is going to make an impact. So really think through, what is that? What is the driving factor that you're telling your team you're going to work more right now, or things are going to feel a little wonky, or they're going to feel unorganized or chaotic. Just remember why we're here, and also remind them while KPIs and metrics aren't everything, they are going to tell a story, and we are going to use those to tell our story. And sometimes that story is to tell us that we need to hire more folks because workloads may be misaligned, or we need to shift to a more skills-based routing of work, doing segmentation within the team. There's always going to be a story though, and it's a balance of the, being mission-driven and being data-driven. So you have to balance it.
Is the story, is it a WIFM story? Is it a what's in it for me story?
I mean, human nature says yes.
Yeah.
But you also are part of a team.
Yeah, I understood. Yeah, of course. But you got to have the WIFM part of that as well, right? I think you got both parts. Well, it's the group objective and then the what's in it for me objective as well. Yeah.
The hardest things to manage during hypergrowth is not only everything that's coming in from your customers and your board wanting, what's going on with revenue and all of that, but it's also, your team members are watching all this growth happen, all these new folks coming in. They're wondering, oh my gosh, what does this mean for me? What does it mean for my career? Am I going to get left behind? So making sure you put their hat on as well and recognize that while this is an exciting time for you, for your team, for your company, it can be a very scary time for your team member, and setting up expectations with them of what a career path looks like, or what the expectations are to make sure that they know they have a path, and they're not going to get left behind.
Right. Once again, why it's so important, that communication is so important. Sorry, you go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, well, I love all that. And one of the things that I do, you're doing a lot of hiring during this period too, right? But one of the things that I do when I hire people, and maybe there's somebody on the call that I've interviewed before, I literally set their expectations that it's going to be a slog. You're going to work long hours. There's going to be ambiguity because we're growing so quickly. But the what's in it for them, everybody should hear this. If you're ever part of one of these growth stories, how valuable that is to your career, right? Mm-hmm. To be able to tell that story, it's very valuable to your career personally. And if you're not getting the opportunities that you feel like you're due in that company, then you can take that experience and go somewhere else. But don't get frustrated and just because you're not getting those opportunities, right? They're gonna come over time. So I think you hire with the expectation that it's going to be tricky and tough at times, and then demonstrate, the other way, I think the question was about accountability. Instead of a sort of like a negative connotation to it, I like to reinforce the positive. So look at what this team did over here in terms of building a new process or engaging with a customer in a new way, really embellish those things that are working and share those stories broadly. It comes back to your whole communication strategy around how you communicate with the team, how you put the stories out there, not only in front of your team, but also in front of the whole company if you have that opportunity. So, I think it's a multi-layered thing.
Very 100% agree. Very much a multi-layered thing. Allie, anything to add before we jump into some questions?
No, they covered all of what I was going to say.
Excellent. All right. So we've definitely got some questions here. I'm going to start going through them. And this is from popularity down. So if you see a question in there, you want to upvote it, you want it to be asked, make sure to upvote it. The first question I've got here is from Russell, and Jay, this is directed directly at you. Question for Jay regarding today's LinkedIn discussion on incentive pay. I haven't been on LinkedIn yet today, so I haven't seen that yet. Can you talk about how to drive the right behaviors and accountability, and what those behaviors should be, especially during hypergrowth?
Yeah. So the point I made this morning was maybe incentive pay is a little bit out of date for what we're trying to do with knowledge work, right?
Yeah.
If you've got a very repetitive task, like maybe there's something there. But I think, to the earlier point Miranda just made, if things are changing so fast in hypergrowth, how do we even know what the right metric is? A metric is just a proxy for your strategy. Okay. I didn't come up with that. That was in another HBR article that
I was impressed. I was impressed there for a second, Jay. That was,
well, I'm humble, but it really is, right? I mean, the metric itself it's just an indicator to help you figure out whether you're on track for the thing that you wanted to accomplish, that business outcome.
right.
So, the reality is those things change a lot in hypergrowth situations. And so if you're going to tie somebody's compensation to that, it better be really, really tight, right? Because one or two things are going to happen. You're either going to have somebody who's focused on a thing that is actually going to move the needle, or they're going to be focused on a thing that is not important anymore and it's not moving the needle relative to where you need to go right now. It could change on a quarter by quarter basis. So I'm a big proponent of having a strong vision, having a strong leader who is going to make that vision clear every single day, who's going to disseminate that throughout the team and have the team deputized to help drive that vision in whatever way they see appropriate at that point in time, and then go, trust that it's happening, but validate that over time. So I don't know if that answers the question quite directly enough, but that's my perspective on it.
Okay. Allie, Miranda, you two have anything to add?
I agree that it needs to be very tight, especially in this hypergrowth stage, because I think there's so much room for, arguments of, oh, well, why can't I get it? Or why didn't I reach it? Or, why are we focused on that? Why is my incentive when I'm not if their incentive is on one part, one metric, but now because of hypergrowth and just a busy season or something has changed, now we have to focus on this part and that metric is no longer valid. I think it reduces the morale because you can get focused, teams can get too focused on that incentive pay. So, and I just pulled up the LinkedIn article just to view the conversation quick. And I do think, it applies to the culture and how it affects the team. So I agree.
On incentive pay and customer success is such a sticky topic.
Yeah, it is.
And, you have some leaders who lean one way and some who lean the other. I have been someone who has been very much on the side of, you're not going to get commission, because I don't want you to focus on the commission. I want you to focus on the customer. However, I have been okay with bonus structures, like an annual bonus, based on the overall portfolio performance and based on your portfolio performance. So one, the company, and two, your portfolio. And performance means churn. It means, what's the renewal rate coming in at? And I think the bonus should be less of the overall comp. Because I don't want my customer success managers seeing dollars. I want them seeing outcomes. I want them people. And the minute you tie a lot of revenue to somebody's comp package, you are essentially turning them into a salesperson, which is okay for some. But I've never structured my team like that, because I want them to, do customer success in a different way.
You want an outcome-based incentive plan, right? I mean, it's not a revenue-based incentive plan, right? You want people that are that are creating a situation where there is a renewal, where they're creating that situation, though, right? And to your point, there's a very fine line between selling and creating that, reducing the friction. I don't know if you remember, I posted something during SaaStr last year, something on LinkedIn about compensation, and it is a hot topic. I mean, it got 30,000 shares or views or something. I mean, it was crazy. Everybody's got an opinion on that.
Yeah, I barely remember yesterday, so
All right. So thank you, Russell, for that question. Next one is from Victoria Pope. How do you handle that period in which CSMs will be handling a growing number of accounts? So even if you're going through hypergrowth mode, you haven't, caught up your hiring yet to deal with that, which is not something unusual for customer success. Their perception of a growing workload can be more damaging than the actual workload.
I actually have lived and breathed this very thing multiple times, and even in my current work, where I'm at with Swiftly, everybody seems to have to take on more all the time, right? And it's tough. It's tough no matter where you are. I think a couple of things that you can do. One, you can really take a look at the overall account portfolio and see if there's a better way to slice and dice it. Two, you can realign what's expected out of each CSM. So, a good example is touch points. If you have like guidelines in that you must talk to this customer 3 times a month, based on their size, maybe it's now 2 times a month because they have more. So really take a look at the overall expectations that you have. Maybe you're only doing business reviews once a year, or instead of once a quarter, right? So if you are going to give your customer success managers more work above the expectations you've already set, right? So most folks are around 1.5 to 2 million in ARR per portfolio. If you have to go above that, then really take a look at what you're going to give to get and figure that out. That way it feels more like collaboration between you and the CSM and less a directive you to the CSM, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. Yep. Sorry, go ahead, Jay.
I have a very strong opinion on this, as I do on most things, loosely held. But what I see happening very, very, very frequently is that as we start to scale up, we have people that we call customer success managers that we expect to do onboarding, that we expect to do support, that we expect to do success plans, that we expect to do EBRs, executive relationships. We're putting too much on the CSM team. They turn into unicorns. It becomes hard to hire for them. And so one of the things that we always do is look at the type of work that the CSM team is doing. And I think Miranda's alluding to this too. When do we start to split off the support function from the CSM team and the onboarding and implementation function from the CSM team? That creates other headaches and other problems you have to solve in the journey, right? Because there are now transitions between different teams and different people. But depending on your model, you have to do it at some point. And that is one of the only ways that I've found to really, it's the key way to limit the amount of work that a person has to do in their role, is to make sure it's clear what their job is relative to all those functions. It's hard to do all those things, especially when you keep piling on accounts. The second thing is to prioritize the accounts with a segmentation model. So if you do have all those roles split out, the CSM can even prioritize within their own book of business which accounts need to be touched with a success planning exercise or a business review at the executive level, and which ones can we punt on for right now. So I think there's a couple of different layers to that. Do you guys agree with that, Allie, Miranda?
I do. Yeah. I'm just answering the question more of the perception from the CSM and less around the actual tactics how to do it. So I agree with you 100%. As a matter of fact, at Swiftly, that's one of the first things we talked about as a team. We did a segmentation to where we now have enterprise, mid-market, small business, and we have strategic accounts. We also, we started splitting out different functions and we did different iterations of the split out. And right now, in customer success, we have an implementation team of 2 who handles, the onboarding, because our onboardings on average are about 71 days. And it's a lot of data work. It's a lot of training. It's, we are a very B2B enterprise, customer base. So it's very hand-hold heavy, all of that. And then we also identified the different touch points that are required. for each of the levels. Like enterprise, I want them talking to them every couple of weeks. We're mid-market every 3 weeks, and small business, which is still tens of thousands of dollars a year at small business level. You need to know what's going on at least monthly. And that's kind of where I came in to say, okay, if I'm going to just throw a ton of, a ton more accounts on you, I'm going to take a look at that and say, if I do the math and put it all on a spreadsheet, I'm wanting you to talk to customers 150 times a month. Is that real? Can you really do that? Probably not.
Nobody.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
But all the things that you said, 100% true, 100% right, and that should be kind of like the table stakes. But I think managing the perception to the CSM and putting that CSM hat on, I don't think they care. I really don't think they care about that. They want to know, what do you expect out of me? You're expecting 150 outreaches a month. I don't care if you give me an implementation person to do my implementation. I still have all this work, and now you're giving me more. And it's like, how do you manage that? And I think it's through collaboration.
I agree. I'm just going to add one thing, and to the I guess the backside of this, where our conversations kind of have been going with N2I too, is what is the customer success, their value points in these, in the growth, in talking with their customers and their engagement levels. So we've had to kind of turn, put that CSM hat and think, how are they viewing it? And are they viewing it as just a task? Are those metrics, or, is that renewal just a checklist? Is it like, oh, they told me to look at these license activations and increase those numbers. Okay, I'll call as many customers as I can, check, I increase my number, but then what, what's that engagement level that you've had with the customer? And so we kind of flipped the switch on, and talked with them, and having them give us the value statements. Okay, why, what is the importance of these strategic accounts? What are the importance of the enterprise accounts, and how are you engaging with them, so that then we can kind of go back and figure out, how they're viewing it, straight from them, and implement.
So helping them understand why what they do is important and why it's important.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. All right. We got another question here from Travis. It's popular here. During hypergrowth stages, especially when moving to a regionalized CS model, there can be an overload of account transitioning if not done correctly, not done carefully. Obviously, it's important to plan ahead to try and minimize the account impact, but how have you all handled growing your CSM team while reducing the amount of times accounts are introduced to new CSMs?
Yeah, I'm living and breathing this right now, because I hired someone on the East Coast, and I don't know if she's on. If she is, hi, Laura. What my rule of thumb is, we should look at everyone's portfolios at least every 6 months, but never shift an account more than 2 times a year. And I aim for once a year. I think there's also really cool ways to do it to where the customer feels it less. And I want to preclude by saying, our customer base, where I'm at Swiftly, we develop relationships with these folks. We go out, we travel, we go on site, we manage the relationship really closely. So this is even tougher in an environment where you develop relationships. But what I do is a couple of things. One, make sure I don't do any shifting more than twice a year, but I'm always looking at the portfolios to make sure they're not becoming overwhelmed. 2, when I do shift, and I know it's a very tight-knit relationship that I could possibly be breaking up, I do what it's called shadowing. So I will have the newer CSM shadow the existing CSM for a couple of months and start slowly answering the questions and answering the tickets, to where the customer's perception is less of, I'm being just ripped away from Bob and given to Jane. It's more of, Bob and Jane are my team, but Jane just answers the account questions more than Bob. And then
kind of weaning them off of Bob.
Yeah. Bob just marches off into the sunset and eventually just doesn't answer. And things like that. There are little tactics like that that can help. do that. But this is, I will say, probably one of the more crucial things that you need to get right as a CS leader. You do not want the customer's view of you to be that every couple of weeks they're getting a new CSM, because not only does it cause confusion for them, it gives this visual that you're not stable.
Yeah, for sure.
All over the place. Like, I have a new CSM every month, right? Why even have a CSM then? Just have a support team that they write into a queue if you're going to frequently.
I am a huge, sorry.
Go ahead. So go ahead, Allie. Go ahead, Allie.
I was going to say, I'm a huge fan of the shadowing technique, and I've implemented it, on multiple teams and cross teams. So even, I'm very passionate about the transitions within customer success teams. So the sales to success handoff and how that works, or even, for example, a maternity leave situation that we're going through right now, that handoff back from the person that was just covering back to their regular CSM that they may or may not have had that relationship with. I'm a strong believer that it can't just be a hard cutoff. You can't just be like, oh, they're back. I reviewed reviewed everything on my end with them. Good luck. Like, to nurture that relationship, having that shadowing technique where, maybe they're on every meeting for a couple of weeks, and then they slowly transition to once, and then maybe they just hop back in, periodically. But then the customer doesn't, they have that hope that they have that connection with the company. So it makes it easier if something were to go wrong in that new relationship. So where they're not just like, oh, that's a bad relationship, I'm stuck now. They have that connection back. So
a tactic that one of my learners from training last week brought up during our training class was that, and this was a customer that had been through, a few customer success managers, and she's a senior CSM. She's been doing it for 10, 15 years. One of the first things she did when she sat down with the executive sponsor as a new CSM is she said, which one of your CSMs was your favorite and why? Right. So basically help me set the bar. Yeah. So just asking the customer, what are your, so we're all in customer success. We have so much about expectation management. Well, so let's just ask the customer, what are your expectations? Mm-hmm. Right. And if the expectations are unreasonable, then at least we know they are, and we can address those, but more times than not, they're going to be reasonable. You just need to know what they are. Yeah. I don't want to hear from you on a quarterly basis. I want to hear from you every 6 months. Great. Mm-hmm. I prefer for, us to communicate via text message first. I have a client, and she and I do most of our communications via text, right? So the frequency, the channel, what kind of response do you expect back from me, right? So, what kind of relationship are we going to have? I think there's nothing wrong with that. So great. Thank you for that. All right, let's move on to another question. Unless Jay, you have.
It's okay. Let's go ahead to the next question. We covered it. That was really good.
Okay. Rachel, Travis, thank you for the question. Rachel, thank you for your question. How do you keep CSMs motivated and hungry for the growth and proactive elements of their role when their day-to-day is so busy? Just talked about this yesterday in one of my classes, the whirlwind, right? All that stuff that they've got to do, right? How do you keep them motivated and hungry for growth and the proactive elements of their role?
I'll get back to something I said earlier, which is in one of the leadership methodologies that I've used in the past is called 4DX, 4 Disciplines of Execution.
That's the whirlwind. That's the whirlwind.
The whirlwind. Yeah,
exactly.
You made me think of it when you said that. They separate the whirlwind from the thing that's really the important thing. And you've probably heard people talk about important versus urgent and that kind of thing. So you're always going to have some whirlwind, right? And that's to be expected. And that happens whether you're an individual contributor or whether you're an executive or a mid-level manager. You're always going to have this. You have customers coming at you. You're going to have team members coming at you that need help, and you're going to have to respond. But there's got to be something that cuts through all that, and that's where that defining vision comes from, and then the high-level metrics come from. And real tactically though, providing opportunities for the team to learn, train, collaborate with one another. What are you hearing? How is it, how do we need to adjust what we're doing? Get everybody involved in that process, I think can be helpful. And then I'll just get back to everything else I said earlier too, which is as a leader in that kind of situation, if you can show that you're making progress, you have to think of your employees like you think of your customers, right? But if you can show that you're making progress in actually building out the organization to better respond and handle that workload systematically, I think it goes a long way for team members who are maybe feeling overwhelmed and overworked right now.
Yeah, you mentioned the town hall. Who mentioned the town hall at the beginning of the?
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So
I think that was me.
Yeah, the customer success town hall. That's something I've been doing that. I'm doing that for 20 years. Right. I'm going to have a quarterly meeting where I'm going to talk about just with my team. Here's what's going on. Right. So that communication is so important. Here's what we're doing. Here's, what we're trying to do. Here's why I'm asking you to track time so I can, do some capacity planning, and whatever it is. But that communication is just so important.
In my last company that I was working with on a full-time basis, I set up groups that would work with each other on a weekly basis. There were small groups, but they were focused on building out the methodology for a particular area of how we implemented the solution or the kind of, engagement we'd have as a CSM team. So you can also put together, it's more work, right? That's what we have to be careful of, but that's really important work too. And if we could set some goals around that, it's a good augmentation for, just the day-to-day crazy that happens when you're growing so fast.
I think it's also really important that managers carve out time to talk to their teams about their growth and development, because that motivates you to really kind of double down during these times of hyper growth, right? So don't underestimate the value of making sure your teams understand their career path, and you have a plan and you show them how all of the work they're doing right now feeds into that, because that's what did you call it? Whiffy? What is in it for me? Or
Whiffin. What's in it for me? Change management.
Yeah, that's the whiffum part of it, right?
Yeah.
So, I have a couple team members who they will put 30 minutes every week on my calendar just to talk about, okay, how am I doing with this? And how am I doing with that? What do I do more of this? And, things like that. What are you struggling with right now? How are you feeling? It's really like carving out that time to have those conversations that it's not about, it's not about the customers, it's about them.
Yeah.
I think that right there can really go a long way in providing motivation, because one, they work for an organization that genuinely cares about their growth and development, and then two, that feeds into those times where they're like, man, this really sucks, I'm working all the time.
Yeah.
That there is like this pie in the sky that they're aiming for.
Yeah, you want them to be bought in. You want them to feel like they're making a difference, like they're part of it. They understand where they're going. They understand the direction they're going in. Okay, cool. Allie, anything to add?
I was just going to comment on, I think it is a big part of the buy-in, getting your team members to buy in. One of the things that has worked in our strategy is celebrating those wins with the customers, and it could be anything. I had this great conversation with a customer that I have not been able to get a hold of for the past 2 months, and here, and that's awesome. And then just celebrating that, the daily download. That's one of the things we focus on. Is who's had a good win, and it could be just a quick conversation, a support call. Hearing it from any side has really helped.
Yeah, the wins are great. We do our coaching program, our 12-week coaching program. I kick off every call that I have with each level. What's happened since the last time we met? Tell me about a win. What's going on? And there's always somebody that's going to pop up and say something. Usually, they're going to say, "Yeah, we even now I'm getting wins every week. It's great. It's great to just kind of energize people. Hey,
yeah,
it's things are happening out there. People are still winning. This is good."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we only got 10 minutes left, 9 minutes left. Got a couple more questions, which we'll hopefully get to. Laura asks, with daily stand-ups, how do you prevent those discussions from feeling like a repeat of information that should be easily available through other methods, like project status? What's the most important thing to cover in those stand-ups, and how can managers foster effective and equal communication in those stand-ups? Allie, you're doing it. Would love to hear how you avoid those being time wasters.
Yeah, they're not meant to be, those project update meetings or, what are you working on? They're instant situations. So they're, oh, this article was released yesterday. Hey, this happened and this is how I solved it with a customer. Just those quick updates that happened within the past 24 hours that it's good for the entire team to know. You can send it in an email, you can send it in a chat, but those get lost, so this is a way that you're meeting face to face and you're, hey, I tried this new method, it worked. And then you build that excitement, and then you leave that meeting with some, a follow-up email that writes it down a little bit more. And it's, those quick updates versus something you would talk in a weekly meeting or a monthly meeting. Those things are more long-term projects. So this is quick, instant situation.
Like 10 to 15 minute stand-ups.
Yeah.
Really quick. Boom, 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 boom.
Real
boom.
quick. We talk, and we let off a little bit of steam as well. So it's just talking about like even a frustration. Oh, I had this long conversation with somebody and, but at the end they were left really happy. So it's not meant to be a formal sit down. Oh, have you finished this task?
Right.
Have you finished this project?
It's where are you at with what you were working on before? What are you working on now? Do you have any blockers? Okay, next.
Yeah.
Right. Boom, 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 boom. A true Scrum stand-up approach.
Yes.
When we do our stand-up, it's always like, what kind of blockers, and is there anything urgent you need to know? And meetings are definitely more in depth.
For Miranda and Jay, knowing my partners, our stand-ups go on and they're, they're crazy as you can imagine. Both Miranda and Jay know my partners quite well. So yeah.
Stand-ups probably become sit-downs.
Oh yes. Yeah, they're sit-downs. They're sit-downs. And they're no longer recorded, thank God. So here's there's a legal issues, some legal issues associated with that. So Beth asks if due to, and this is interesting because I talked about this a little bit in our last our CS Mastermind. If due to hypergrowth, your organization decides to make a transition from account management to customer success, how do you suggest transition the mindset of the employees on your team? And I just want to say, Beth, I like the way you worded that because it is a mindset shift. Mm-hmm. You can't just take account managers and say, okay, you're customer success, throw a title on them and boom, right? Because traditional account management, which was very much a sales focused process, is very different and we touched on this a little bit in the incentives, to an outcome based type of process. But would love to hear some suggestions from all of you on that transition.
I would say put them through Success Hackers training.
There you go.
Nice. She is not being compensated for that. Well, now you might be. I might ship you some wine now.
No, with all due seriousness, and I'm just going to say this: not all salespeople make great CSMs. Not all CSMs make great salespeople. So it's not as easy as just saying you're now a CSM. It's making sure, one, do they want to be a CSM? Do they understand what that means? Where are they? Like, map out what skills you would like for them to have, and then work with the account manager to really see where they fall on that spectrum. What skills are they missing? What needs to be trained on? And then change the incentive in the incentive plans. If you just shift them and give them a title and the incentive plan is the same, essentially, you're not going to change the behaviors. It kind of goes back to my thoughts on their total, comp plan, not having a large commission, not having any commission, maybe a bonus structure, maybe no bonus structure, but really thinking about what incentivizes this particular position and how do you shift that. And then I think also be ready to rip the Band-Aid if you switch an account manager over after you do all of these activities with them and they still have like that sales in them. Be ready to rip that Band-Aid and say that might not be a fit for you, and figure out if there is a place on the sales team or if there is maybe a better place for them outside of your org. Because if you really want to do it and you really want to have an outcomes focused group of customer success managers, you have to make sure you have the right people in place.
Yeah.
I took that as a little bit more of like a overall like cultural shift of the company from a transactional account management and support. And I don't know, maybe I read it wrong, but transactional account management and support to a customer success, focused company. And so to add to what Miranda said, which I completely agree with, I would say this is a change that, like, if you're going to move that mindset, a lot of companies that are going from on-premise software to cloud-based solutions are having to go through that kind of transition and that transformation. And if it's not championed from the CEO, get out.
Yeah.
Don't even try it.
Yeah.
If the CEO and the executive team aren't driving that change, it will not take hold.
Yeah.
It absolutely will not.
100% agree.
That would be my advice to executives is you've got to lead that change for it to take hold across all those different parts of the organization. And we could probably do a whole webinar on that.
Yeah.
We could. Maybe we should.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's a huge, being from the Midwest and seeing it across, in Wisconsin specifically, it's a huge thing right now, making those changes from, account management to a customer success. And it is a company-wide thing. If you don't have the buy-in from the top down, it will not stick. It won't work. Or you might be calling your account managers customer success managers, but your churn won't change, your renewal rates won't change, and you're going to have that same relationship with the customer as you did as they were account managers, and you're not going to see that proactive loyalty from the customers that building that relationship truly has. And so you do, and going off of what Miranda said real quick, being able and being willing to rip that Band-Aid off, that it might not be a good fit, that they might be too tactical, too support based, or too salesy for a customer success role. It is finding that right type of person that will fit customer success. It's not universal. It's not a universal role that I think a lot of people think it is.
It's not. And we've seen a lot. We've seen a lot of people come through our training that are trying to make that shift from account management to customer success. You can teach it. Right. Especially, and it's especially good with people who have a sales background that's more consultative based selling, solution selling. It's an easier transition because what we're doing, with in customer success, a lot of outcome based work. So the transition's a lot easier for those folks. So much harder when you're trying to take a hunter, an account executive type hunter, and move them into to a customer success role. Well, we're at the end of our hour. I want to thank all of our guests today for joining me. Thank you, Allie, Miranda, Jay. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it. Always wonderful speaking with you. One final note, great CSMs know they don't have all the answers, but they know where to get them. That's why we created CSM Mastermind, to harness the knowledge and experience of the community to help improve everyone. So we hope you got something out of this discussion. We'll see you at our next event in June. Check out our website to find out more and sign up. Have a great rest of your day and week. Stay safe, stay healthy. Make sure to get out, get some sun, do some meditation, listen to some music, do something, take care of yourself. This is an incredibly emotionally challenging job that we already have, and even now makes it, we've got all this other stuff we're dealing with. So please make sure you're taking care of yourself, and I wish you a good day. Thanks, everybody.